Emily Johnson's life had always been overshadowed. Her parents, Robert and Sarah, never saw her as more than the second child. The family's focus was always on Sally, Emily's younger sister by 4 years. When Emily was 5, Sally was born. From that day, the dynamics in the family dramatically changed. In their parents' eyes, Sally was the perfect baby. Her every move was praised, and her demands were immediately met. Meanwhile, Emily was a quiet and obedient child. She didn't seek her parents' attention and instead spent her time reading or playing alone in the garden. When she started school, Emily excelled academically. However, when looking at her report cards, her parents just shrugged. "Well, that's Emily for you," her father would say, and her mother would always ask, "How is Sally doing?" Sally's grades were below average, but her parents dismissed it, saying, "Sally has talents in other areas." The bike Emily wanted for her 10th birthday was denied for being too expensive. However, a few months later, when Sally wanted the same bike, the parents bought it without hesitation. Emily kept her feelings to herself and silently watched her sister play with the new bike. In high school, Emily dove deeper into her studies. She earned a scholarship and got into a prestigious university. Yet, on her graduation day, her parents attended Sally's dance recital instead of her graduation. Emily stood alone on stage, looking out at the empty seats as her name was called. In college, Emily majored in economics. She worked part-time jobs to pay for her tuition and focused on her studies. Meanwhile, Sally attended a local community college, with her parents paying her full tuition. Sally skipped classes and partied, but her parents just laughed it off, saying, "It's an experience she's having while she's young." When Emily graduated and got a job at a well-known company on Wall Street, her parents' reaction was lukewarm. "Big corporations are cold places. Be careful." Her mother warned, and her father added, "Money isn't everything." However, when Sally found a job as a waitress, her parents celebrated enthusiastically. By the time Emily was 30, she had established herself as a solid financial analyst. Her analysis was highly regarded in the industry, and her insights brought substantial profits to many investors. Yet, her status within the family remained unchanged. One day, Emily was invited to a family dinner at her parents' house. As they sat around the table, the conversation always centered on Sally. Sally had recently started dating a young billionaire named Thomas. "Tell us more about your boyfriend, Sally," her mother eagerly asked. "What's he like?" Sally smiled smugly. "He's just a wonderful man. Last week, he took me to Paris on his private jet." Her parents exclaimed excitedly, "Oh, how wonderful." Her mother shouted, and her father added, "I'm proud that our daughter is dating a billionaire." Emily listened silently. She had recently led a major project that brought millions in profits to her company. But there was no chance to talk about it. As the meal ended and Emily offered to help with the dishes, her mother stopped her. "Oh, Emily, you're busy. You don't need to help. Go home early." Emily was puzzled. "But..." Her mother shook her head. Emily nodded silently and returned to the living room. There, she saw Sally showing off the latest designer bag to their parents. "He got this for me," Sally bragged. "He knows my taste so well." Her parents gasped in admiration and inspected the bag. Emily remembered the expensive watch she had given her parents. They had called it a waste and hardly used it. On her way home that night, Emily sighed deeply. She was proud of her success. But within her family, it seemed to have no value. Later, when Sally married Thomas, Emily's family was enveloped in joy. Thomas was an older, wealthy man who seemed like an ideal son-in-law to her parents. Emily coldly observed their reactions. "Sally, you are truly lucky." Her mother, Sarah, excitedly gripped her daughter's hand. Her father, Robert, eagerly continued, "This marriage elevates our family into high society." The connections with Thomas's family are invaluable. Emily inwardly smirked at her parents' words. Are they really thinking about Sally's happiness? She wondered. The wedding was lavishly extravagant, with all expenses paid by Thomas's family. Emily watched as her parents proudly mingled with the guests, feeling complex emotions. This is their ticket to a better life, she muttered to herself. However, Emily quickly sensed the fragility of this marriage. Sally, intoxicated by sudden wealth, began indulging in extravagant spending. Expensive dresses, glittering jewels, overseas trips. Sally's spending knew no bounds. At a family dinner one day, her parents enthusiastically discussed Sally's perfect life. Sally's life is truly perfect, Sarah said, her eyes shining. Robert nodded in agreement. Thomas is a very generous man. Sally is a lucky girl. Emily silently moved her fork, but inside, she knew a very different reality. Already, serious cracks had formed in Sally and Thomas's marriage. Thomas was growing intolerant of Sally's limitless spending. Their arguments became more intense day by day, turning the home atmosphere hostile. Why can't you understand? Thomas's shouting voice could be heard through the thin walls. We'll go bankrupt at this rate. Sally's crying followed. You don't love me. You don't understand my feelings at all. After such fights, Sally always fled back to her parents' house. And her parents invariably took her side. That man isn't treating Sally properly, Robert expressed angrily. Sarah agreed. Sally, you've done nothing wrong. It's just that Thomas doesn't recognize your worth. Emily calmly observed these exchanges between her parents and Sally. It was clear this marriage wouldn't last. They refused to face reality. Emily thought. They blame everything on Thomas and refuse to acknowledge Sally's responsibility, but this solves nothing. Emily was the only one in the family who could analyze the situation objectively. She foresaw that Sally's spending habits, Thomas's dwindling patience, and her parents' blind support were leading the marriage toward collapse. However, Emily's insights never reached her family. Years of experience had taught her that expressing her opinion was futile. And this situation felt like a symbol of how she had always been ignored and underestimated in her family. Emily sighed deeply. Nobody ever listens to me, she thought sadly. But in time, they will see that my predictions were correct. And Emily's premonition would come to pass. Sally and Thomas's marriage gradually, but surely headed towards dissolution. Emily could see this outcome, but all she could do was quietly observe. One day, Emily's life took a sudden turn. She had just returned from a 2-month business trip abroad. Dragging her tired body, she headed to her parents' house. Enveloped in the familiar atmosphere of her childhood home, she felt a strong desire to relax. As the taxi stopped in front of her parents' house, Emily took a deep breath. I'm finally back, she murmured. But the moment she stepped out of the car, she felt something was off. Her own car, which should have been in its usual spot, was nowhere to be seen. During her long business trip, she had left her car at her parents' house. Emily furrowed her brow. That's odd. She looked around. The absence of her car made the familiar landscape feel suddenly alien. As she walked towards the entrance, Emily considered various possibilities. Did they put it in the garage, or did they send it for repairs? However, a more ominous feeling churned deep inside her. As she opened the door, her mother Sarah greeted her. Emily, welcome back. Sarah hugged her daughter, but her smile seemed forced. Feeling the oddity in her mother's demeanor, Emily greeted her back. I'm back, Mom. Then, hesitantly, she asked about her concern. Hey, my car is missing. Did you move it somewhere? Sarah's expression froze for a moment. She stumbled over her words. Oh well. Emily's heart started to beat faster. Her mother's reaction amplified her anxiety. Mom, what happened? a slight tremble mixed into her voice. Sarah took a deep breath and looked straight into her daughter's eyes. Then, slowly, she began to speak. "Well, I remember someone sold it." It took Emily a few seconds to comprehend the words. Sold it. She doubted her ears. "What do you mean?" Sarah uncomfortably shrugged her shoulders. "Sally got divorced. She needed a change of scenery, so we used it to take Sally to Hawaii." Shock and anger rapidly swelled within Emily. "My car, without telling me." Her voice trembled with disbelief and a sense of betrayal. Sarah tried to justify, but seeing Emily's expression, she swallowed her words. The room was engulfed in a heavy silence. Emily was desperately trying to control her emotions. Her heart wavered between confusion and mistrust. The car she cherished, a symbol of her independence and the result of her hard efforts, had been sold without her knowledge. She took a deep breath, trying to regain her composure. But despite her efforts, tears welled up in her eyes. "Why?" Her voice was hoarse. "Why didn't you consult me?" Sarah sensed her daughter's pain and wore a look of regret. But it could not change what had already happened. Her father, Robert, also appeared at the entrance. "Emily, you're back. What's going on here? Is it true you sold my car? How could you do that?" "It was my car. I bought it with money I saved from years of work." Robert shrugged. "Emily, you'll be all right. You have a good job, don't you? You can buy a new car anytime." Anger flared up inside Emily. But deeper than that flame was an immeasurable sense of betrayal. For years, she had played the role of the responsible one in the family. She took responsibility, acted correctly, and worked hard to achieve independence. And this betrayal was her reward. Emily said with a trembling voice, "This is unbelievable." At that moment, the door to the living room opened, and Sally appeared. She proudly displayed her sun-kissed skin and wore a relaxed expression. "As if there were no problems at all," Sally cheerfully said. "Oh, Emily, you're back." The insensitivity in Sally's voice ignited Emily's anger. Her anger reached a boiling point, and she could no longer contain her emotions. "Sally," Emily exclaimed, "were you enjoying a luxurious trip to Hawaii with my car? Without even consulting me?" Sally, unfazed by her sister's anger, shrugged. "Oh, I thought you wouldn't mind." Emily's eyes widened. "Wouldn't mind." Her voice trembled with anger. "That was my car, Sally. I worked for years, saved money, and finally bought that car, and you sold it without asking me." Sally tilted her head, as if she couldn't understand her sister's anger. "It's just a car. You can always buy another one, right?" She said it lightly. "Besides, I really needed that vacation. It helped me get over my divorce, and now I feel much better." Every word from Sally brought to the surface the frustrations that had been building up for years. This was no longer just about the car. It was the culmination of years of being ignored, underestimated, and having her worth unacknowledged. "Sally, you really don't understand, do you?" Emily's voice was low, carrying a dangerous calm. "This isn't just about the car. For years, I've been second place in this family. My efforts, my successes, my feelings, none of it mattered. And now, you've disposed of my prized possession as if it meant nothing." This is the last straw. For the first time, Sally seemed to realize the depth of her sister's anger. The smile faded from her face, replaced by a look of unease. "Emily, I didn't mean to." But Emily was no longer listening. Years of suppressed emotions were overflowing. "This is the end," Emily said in a low voice. "What's ending?" Sarah asked, confused. Emily looked her parents straight in the eye. "My relationship with you. Enough is enough." With that, Emily left the house. Her heart swirled with long-standing frustrations and disappointments. But at the same time, a new resolve was budding within her. When Emily returned to her apartment, she sat down at her computer immediately. Her hands trembled, but her heart was filled with determination. First, she changed all the passwords for her bank accounts and credit cards. Next, she withdrew all the emergency funds she had left for her parents from the accounts she had opened in her own name, for emergencies. Emily reminded herself, she had considered the possibility of her parents trying to access her assets. I will never be used by them again, she told herself. Next, she contacted a lawyer. I want to take legal action regarding the unauthorized sale of my car, she explained over the phone. The lawyer listened carefully before offering advice. Emily, your situation is complicated, the lawyer said. Legal and emotional complexities often arise in family matters, but it is possible to protect your rights. Emily took a deep breath and listened to the lawyer's words. First, about the unauthorized sale of the car. This is clearly illegal, the lawyer continued to explain. You can file a civil lawsuit. However, the court tends to recommend reconciliation among family members. Emily shook her head. I do not wish for reconciliation. I want proper compensation. The lawyer nodded. Understood. Let's start with a formal demand via certified mail. If there is no response, we will consider filing a lawsuit. Next, they discussed a restraining order. There's a chance that my parents or Sally might try to contact me, Emily said with concern. In that case, you can apply for a restraining order, the lawyer explained. However, the court will be cautious in cases involving family relations. Clear evidence of danger or harassment is needed. Emily nodded silently. She decided to start recording any calls or messages from her parents or Sally. She began writing a letter to her parents. Dear Dad and Mom, the unauthorized sale of my car is a serious betrayal to me. This isn't just about an object. It's the culmination of years of unfair treatment. I am prepared to take legal action, but more importantly, I can no longer continue a relationship with you. This will be my last contact. Goodbye. Emily. After mailing the letter, Emily felt a deep sense of relief. At the same time, sadness welled up inside her. She fought back tears, reminding herself, this is necessary to protect myself. That night, Emily couldn't sleep. She reflected on her childhood memories, the days she desperately tried to be recognized by her parents, the pain of always being second to Sally, and now, this final betrayal. As morning came, Emily rose with a new resolve. It's the start of a new life. She told herself reflection in the mirror. Emily began rebuilding her life. She immersed herself in her job, found new hobbies, and deepened her relationships with true friends. Memories of her family sometimes overwhelmed her, but each time, she remembered her decision. This is self-defense, for my own happiness. Emily's decision wasn't just emotional. As a financial professional, she understood the importance of taking concrete steps to protect herself. Weeks later, Emily filed a civil lawsuit for compensation for her car. The court ordered her parents to pay for the car's market value plus compensation for emotional distress. This verdict brought Emily great relief. Justice has finally been served, she thought. But more than the financial victory, what mattered to Emily was asserting her rights and standing up to her family's unjust actions. This isn't the end, Emily reminded herself, but it is a new beginning. Emily's decision sent shockwaves through the Johnson family. In the first few days, her parents and Sally were confused, angry, and saddened. The first to contact her was her mother, Sarah. Emily, I don't understand what you're thinking, Sarah said tearfully over the phone. We're family. Families are supposed to help each other. Emily responded calmly. Mom, I've always helped, but it was one-sided. That's enough. Next was her father, Robert. His approach was more aggressive. Emily, are you sane? He shouted. Suing us? Have some shame? Emily took a deep breath and replied, Dad, you should be ashamed. You sold my property without my consent, and you think you can justify that. Sally's message was predictably self-centered. Emmy, why are you doing this? Sally whined. I need you right now. I'm really suffering from my divorce. Emily responded coldly. Sally, I've been suffering for a long time too. But no one noticed. It's over now. Weeks passed, and the family's attempts to contact Emily became increasingly persistent. They called and messaged daily, and sometimes even appeared at her apartment. Emily recorded all contacts and consulted her lawyer. As a result, she decided to apply for a restraining order. During the court hearing, Emily testified tearfully. Their actions have had a serious impact on my life, she told the judge. I have the right to live safely and peacefully. The judge carefully reviewed the evidence and ultimately issued the restraining order. This prohibited Emily's parents and Sally from making direct contact with her. However, the family did not give up. They continued to send messages to Emily through mutual acquaintances and relatives. Emily, your parents are really worried, her Aunt Mary conveyed. They want to reconcile with you, Emily responded politely but firmly. Aunt Mary, my decision has not changed. Please tell my parents that. This situation caused Emily great stress. However, it also strengthened her resolve. This is not an easy journey, Emily wrote in her journal, but it is necessary to reclaim my life. Time passed, and a year had elapsed since Emily's decision. She was promoted at work, started yoga as a new hobby, and deepened her bonds with true friends. After cutting ties with Emily, Robert and Sarah's lives changed dramatically. For the first time, they realized how much they had relied on Emily. Financially, they faced severe difficulties. Robert's early retirement and Sarah's unstable part-time income made it impossible to maintain their previous standard of living. Sarah, we need to cut back more, Robert said one evening. At this rate, we won't be able to pay the mortgage. Sarah sighed. I know, but what can we do? Sally's situation was even more dire. Years of pampering had left her completely unprepared for real-world life. After her divorce, Sally realized for the first time that she needed to be independent. But she lacked the necessary skills and experience. Work? Me, Sally asked her mother in surprise. But I don't have any special skills. Sarah sighed. Sally, we can't support you anymore. You need to find a way to live on your own. For the first time, Sally felt the need to take responsibility for her life. However, it was a very challenging task for her. She started looking for a job but was quickly discouraged. During interviews, her lack of experience became apparent. I'm sorry, but you don't have the necessary skills, she was repeatedly told. Sally felt disappointed and angry. Why won't anyone hire me? She cried over the phone to a friend. I'm so wonderful. However, her friends gradually began to distance themselves from her. They were tired of Sally's self-centered attitude and her constant requests for help. Sally, we all have our own lives, one friend said. We can't keep looking after you forever. Feeling increasingly isolated, Sally eventually found a job as a waitress at a small cafe. However, it was a big shock for her. This job isn't right for me, she said tearfully at the end of her first day. The customers order me around, and my colleagues look down on me. But she had no other choice. Sally gritted her teeth and continued working. Meanwhile, Emily heard about her family's situation in bits and pieces through mutual acquaintances. She harbored complex feelings. It's hard to hear that they are struggling. Emily confided to her friend Jennifer. But this is a lesson they need to learn, Jennifer responded with understanding. You did the right thing, Emily. Sometimes tough love is necessary. Emily nodded. Yes, both they and I need to grow and get through this. At that time, Robert and Sarah were facing the difficulties of living without their daughter's support. They had to give up their luxurious lifestyle and start living more modestly. Luxury cars were sold, Designer clothes and expensive jewelry were let go. They sold their large house and moved to a smaller, more affordable apartment. This change was a big shock to them. "I never imagined living in such an apartment," Sarah muttered as she looked around their new home. Robert quietly responded, "But this is our new reality now." The economic difficulties brought them many opportunities for reflection. For years, they had taken Emily's success for granted and overlooked her contributions. Now, they felt her value acutely. "We have done terrible things to Emily," Robert said one day. Sarah teared up. "Yes, we should have cherished her more." They began to realize how unfair and harmful their actions had been. The result of excessively pampering Sally and alienating Emily was now coming back to haunt them. "We have failed as parents." Robert sighed deeply. Sarah nodded. "We never considered Emily's feelings, not even when we sold her car." They tried to contact Emily, but due to the restraining order, direct contact was impossible. Instead, they decided to write a letter. "Dear Emily, we deeply apologize for the mistakes we made. We treated you unfairly and failed to recognize your value. Now, we are facing the consequences of our actions, which have taught us a lot. We sincerely wish for your happiness. If possible, we hope to reconcile with you someday. With love, Dad and Mom." They sent this letter through a mutual acquaintance to Emily. They were not sure if they would get a reply, but at least they had expressed their feelings. As time passed, Robert and Sarah gradually adapted to their new life. They started volunteering at a local community center and made new friends. "There's more to life than just money," Robert realized. Sarah agreed. "Yes, maybe we finally realized what's truly important." Their relationship deepened. By facing difficulties together, their bond grew stronger. They discussed daily events every night, deepening their understanding of each other's feelings. Although the hope for reconciliation with Emily was slim, they did not give up hope. Even if reconciliation was not possible, they were determined to learn from their mistakes and live a better life for the rest of their days. Meanwhile, Sally was also gradually learning the harsh realities of life in the real world. "I'm sorry, I'll bring it right away," Sally said, apologizing to a complaining customer. The old Sally would never have behaved this way. As time passed, Sally slowly grew. For the first time, she understood the value of money earned through her own efforts. This is what Emily must have felt, she realized one day. Working every day, living on my own strength, Sally began to feel sorry for Emily. However, because of the restraining order, she could not apologize directly. Instead, she wrote her feelings in her diary. "Emily, I was really foolish. I never considered your feelings. Now, I'm experiencing just a fraction of what you went through. I'm truly sorry." Sally's journey was long and filled with challenges, but she was gradually making progress toward becoming an independent adult. 2 years had passed since Emily's decision. Her parents had reflected on their actions, and Sally had slowly begun to walk the path of independence. However, the most significant change for Emily was happening within herself. She had regained her confidence, recognized her own worth, and learned the importance of setting healthy boundaries. Her life had transformed significantly. Professionally, Emily had been promoted to vice president. Her insight and decisiveness had become vital assets to her company. "Ms. Johnson, your latest report was outstanding," praised the CEO. "Thanks to your analysis, we were able to generate millions in profits." Emily smiled. "Thank you. It was a team effort." On a personal level, Emily had also made substantial progress. She regularly attended therapy, confronting the long-standing trauma from her family. "Emily, your progress is impressive," said Dr. Chen, her therapist. "I can see a significant improvement in your self-esteem." Emily nodded. "Yes, I've learned to value myself and the importance of setting healthy boundaries." Her social life had also flourished. Emily deepened her bonds with true friends, started volunteering on weekends, and contributed to the community. "Emily, you are truly remarkable," said Sarah, a fellow volunteer. "Your kindness and strength give hope to many people." Emily blushed slightly. "Thank you. I'm learning a lot too." Yet she hadn't completely forgotten the past. Occasionally, she thought of her family and felt a pang in her heart, especially during holidays and birthdays. During those moments, Emily turned to writing in her journal to cope with her feelings. "Today is my father's birthday," she wrote. "Thinking about him still makes me sad, but it's a natural feeling. My decision was right, and this experience has made me stronger." Emily found healing by sharing her experiences with others. She interacted with people who had similar experiences on anonymous online forums. "Thank you all for listening to my story," she posted. "Cutting ties with family was one of the hardest decisions I've ever made, but it was necessary. Now I am living my life. You can be strong too." Her words inspired many, and Emily felt joy knowing that her experiences were helping others. As time passed, Emily learned to accept the pain of the past and recognize it as a part of herself. "I am not perfect," she reminded herself, "but I am continuously growing." And that is the essence of life.